Today, this episode is brought to you by Stamps.com. Since 1998, Stamps.com has been an indispensable tool for nearly 1 million businesses. Stamps.com brings the services of the U.S. Postal Service and UPS shipping right to your computer. Whether you're an office sending invoices, a side hustle Etsy shop, or a full-blown warehouse shipping out orders, Stamps.com will make your life easier. All you need is a computer and a standard printer. No special supplies or equipment. And within minutes, you're up and running, printing official postage for any letter, any package, anywhere you want to send it. And you'll get exclusive discounts on postage and shipping from USPS and UPS. Once your mail is ready, just schedule a pickup or drop it off. No traffic, no lines. Cut the confusion out of shipping. With Stamps.com's new Rate Advisor tool, you can compare shipping rates and timelines to easily find the best option. Save time and money with Stamps.com. There's absolutely no risk. And with my promo code POD, that's P-O-D, you get a special offer that includes a 4-week trial plus free postage and a digital scale. No long-term commitments or contracts. Just go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone at the top of the page, and type in POD. That's P-O-D. That's Stamps.com, promo code P-O-D. Stamps.com. Never go to the post office again. Ladies and gentlemen, especially if you have a small business, it is really, you know how hard it is to get things going. It's usually a one-man show. And I've had only positive experiences with Stamps.com. Try it. You'll like it. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Claudia Monicelli. My avid followers knew this podcast as Pleasure Seeking, the Pleasure Seeking podcast, named after my book, The Magic of Pleasure Seeking. As soon as it's available for pre-order, I'll announce it here. Enjoy your listening. I won't be talking because our guest is TAMARA ZONER, and she will be speaking for herself. What is TAMARA, or who is TAMARA? What does she do? Well, let me just start by saying that she's a speaker and a coach, and she's on a mission to create greater happiness in the world. And I'm thinking to myself, whoa, she must have grown wings along her life somewhere by teaching individuals and groups the actions and happiness of habits of happiness podcast.
Thank you, Claudia. It's a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. So what do you do, and how do you do that? I mean, what got you into that?
Yes, those are fabulous questions. People always ask, how did you get into this work? Well, what I do is really teach those actions and habits of happiness so that people can move from wherever they're at to where they truly want to be and really live a life that feels good to them. And I got into it because I grew up a relatively happy kid. Lots of circumstances that could have made that different, but I'm lucky enough to have been born with some natural positivity and optimism, and really was my baseline of happiness is probably higher than the average, I would say.
Yeah.
And then I went through a period of my life which was very unhappy, and I kept getting unhappier and unhappier.
Oh.
And I realized that felt horrible, and I didn't want to be feeling
Okay, now
that way.
wait. I will stop you. You're not going to glide right past.
Not glossing over that.
No. We go under the surface here.
Cool.
Was it something that you would like to mention, or?
I'm perfectly comfortable talking about it because I feel it's so important for people to have an understanding that you can be anywhere and still get to happy.
Right.
And so I was married, and my now ex-husband was not the most supportive, loving, patient, kind human being. And he
was only human?
Yeah, he was only human, but he,
he had no wings like you.
He wasn't real. He has some stuff that he doesn't look at, right? Mm-hmm. And he wasn't nice, and it wasn't supportive, and I kept to survive really in the relationship. I had to keep shutting pieces of me down.
Right.
And off.
I get that. Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't the way I wanted to live. It wasn't the way I wanted to show up as a parent. And so eventually
I ask you, Tamara, what was the last straw? Was there one last straw? There usually is.
Really was. I mean, there were so many straws, but the last straw.
Okay, now look, we have to put a time on this. I know you.
I am a relentless optimist, as I call it. So I give him so many chances. Okay. And the very last straw was when I came home back to Michigan for a visit. We had been living in England for a couple of years, and I came home for a visit and was surrounded by friends and family that I hadn't seen in years. Yeah. And over the first few days, I started to notice myself relaxing because I wasn't in this constant tense state of being able to handle whatever was thrown at me. Right. And then I started noticing how nice people were. Yeah. And how these people who were telling me that they loved me, they actually communicated that with their language, their body language, their beingness. And I was thinking, oh, this is how it feels when people love you and they actually treat you with that love. And so I made some decisions in that first week of, hey, this isn't good. This doesn't feel good. This isn't what I want. And we can make changes. Right. But I think I'm going to take a little longer of a vacation. Right. And see how you might take some responsibility for the problems in our relationship instead of me having to be the one to do that always. Right. And as it evolved, he made it really easy for me to make the final decision, which wasn't easy, of course. Of course. An exceptionally hard decision. Yeah. And he made it easier through behaviors that just said, yes, I'm making the right decision by separating myself from this person in this relationship. And now I get to start rebuilding myself back into who I love. Okay. I get it. Mm-hmm. Well, now do you mind if I ask you how long ago that was? Yes. Actually, I've been back home 7 years last month. So it's been 7 years. Ah. Mm-hmm. And it was 15 years of marriage. Okay. Well, it's not, there you are. There's not, it wasn't that much. It wasn't 40 years or 30 years. Oh, no. Okay. So
for our listeners, all of a sudden I pushed the right button. Now I have Tamara next to me in full view. She's beautiful. You're missing. You're missing out. Okay, so now how did you go about it? What was your main objective? To communicate, because I know you're a speaker, or to coach couples, to coach women, empowerment? What were your key actions?
My key actions were, yes, women were my focus. I wanted to teach the tools that helped me.
For example?
Step back. The passion test is one of them. I'm a certified passion test facilitator. So this is a process of clarifying the 5 things that matter the most to you in your life, what you want to be, do, feel, or have in your experience, and learning how to align your life with those things so that every day becomes more joyful and fulfilling. And that's the process that I use to kind of start truth telling myself.
Okay, wait. Before we get into that truth arena. All right, so now I'm a woman. I'm having trouble. Straw number 1, straw number 2. I'm at 100. 101 comes, I'm out. I come to you. I'm sort of leery about your technique, but I've heard good things about you. You know, things happen. Word of mouth. That's still true today. What do you do to win me over? I mean, I've already paid you. I'm in your office. I'm next to you or on screen. So what do we do next?
We have an experience.
Oh, we sure will.
We have an experience, and it's in this process of making your list. So initially you start with this list of 10 to 12 things, and then I take you through a process of questioning to get you to your top 5. Okay. And it's like, which one feels better? So we're comparing all these things.
Give me an example from a make-believe client. So you don't have to, Miss X, where she has had 20 or 10 or whatever. So we can understand. If you have those at your fingertips.
Oh, so many.
Okay.
A lot of people, because I can just kind of generalize
sure.
many clients into one. A lot of people come to me, and this is what I'm hearing, I don't know who I am anymore. Right. I lived my life for my husband and now he's left me. Or I lived my life for my children and now they're grown and gone. And I just don't know who I am or what I want or really what feels good. And so I start encouraging them to dream a little and to tap back into those heart's desires of when they were younger, maybe what they dreamed of, to go to school for, or maybe their passions that they had, but they set aside for their responsibilities.
For example, could it be dance lessons or something like that?
I don't singing or writing or painting or even, working in an office.
Right. Anything.
Or anything at all. And so to get them to kind of tap back into what makes you come alive, what makes you feel alive, what lights you up. And then they start dreaming a little. And then I, take them through the test making process or the list making process.
I want to know about that.
So I give them a meditation. Well, first of all, we talk about where do our experiences really come from, creating, and this is that conscious creating we talked off camera at first about what we're creating in our lives. We're always creating, whether we know it or not, whether we're consciously creating or not is the question. And so I say, look at your experience and what is in your reality that you really don't want. And most of us focus our attention on what we don't want.
So are you talking about artifacts, things, or experiences, or people? Because you're talking about creating, Yes, you're saying
all of it.
We're consciously and subconsciously creating all the time. And I know what that would mean if I'm writing a book. I don't know what that means if I'm watching a TV series to unwind. Sure. Do you see what I mean?
It might mean something like this, Claudia. So consciously I'm saying I want a relationship that's supportive and loving. Right. But subconsciously, I'm scared. I've been hurt before. I'm fearful. And my actions are, instead of getting out there and meeting people, staying at home and eating a bowl of ice cream and watching Netflix every night. And so it's
there's
not
a lot
all...
to be said about Netflix.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with Netflix in moderation, like anything else.
I don't know about the ice cream, but depends on what kind.
That too is fine in moderation. So, what we want and what we're doing, our actions aren't lining up with our desires. And so it's teaching people, okay, let's prioritize. Let's see what you really want. Is that relationship really so important to you? Okay. Or would you rather, would it feel better to actually be in a career that lights you up from within and you feel is making a difference? Right. Because there can be anything. It could be as simple as feeling healthy in my body.
They have not yet written their list, correct?
Okay. Correct. We're just getting to the idea of it. And then they make that list. And so then I say...
And what does that list typically look like?
When my life is ideal, I am fill in the blank 10 times. And that includes all the areas of our life, our physical environment, our relationships, our relationship to ourselves. Spirituality, service, if we want to volunteer, our health, our fitness, all of it. So every area of your life that you can imagine, you can write things down in all of those areas.
Now, what do you do to get them to drop to 5?
Yeah. So this is where the specific questions come into play. So it's a comparative analysis, so to speak. So I'll say, which feels better, this number 1 passion, and I'll read the whole sentence so they feel it, or number 2, and then they answer. And we keep going through their list of 10 things each time, and then whichever ones come out on top, that's their number 1. Yeah, and then we go through that list 5 times. So each time going through different things, and each time reminding them to answer from their heart, not their head. And so if I see them or hear them hesitating, then I'll say, okay, pause. We're going to ask a deeper level question. And then it's, if you could have this one, but never, ever that one.
Okay, I get it.
And then we flip it, so they're feeling into how it feels to be living this life.
I've got a challenge for you, Tamara.
Okay.
I mean,
sure.
Don't you lose your patience sometimes with women? I mean, sometimes I'd like to smack them around. Sorry about that.
No, I don't actually. Okay. I'm trying to recall a time that I have, because I could have lost patience with myself, and where would that have gotten me?
Right. But you see, you in the position that you are, sometimes I think that you would be looking beyond where they are now, and don't you have that urge just to give them the answer? Or, of course, it's their own personal answer.
They have to find their own answers.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And we all start where we're at. I mean, I can't skip them ahead 5 years.
Right. Too bad.
So
I want my money back.
Oh, that's a bummer. Yeah, I don't have time travel in my resume, unfortunately. But because it's the going through it that helps us grow through it.
Right.
And that's what I encourage people to really understand, is that it is in your own hands.
Right.
And and I tell people after every single passion test or workshop or talk, you have a choice now to take what you heard and learned and experienced and think that was cool and never look at it again. Yeah. Or you can commit to a practice.
You have patience, obviously. I mean, this is a lot of patience it takes to meticulously bring that person to a place where oftentimes, I mean, do you ever get surprised in this phase?
Oh, sure. And frankly, they're surprised most often.
Give me an idea of a surprise.
So someone might think that the most important thing to them in the world is actually their job, and they want to have this career that they love. And then like maybe as an afterthought in their 10 things, they've listed a relationship. Okay. And then as they go through that passion test, the relationship becomes number one.
Okay.
They didn't want it to be important. And in fact, it ended up being the thing in their heart that was. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Well, now let's get back to Tamara, because Tamara's doing this after 7 years of having experienced a low, an all-time low. Can you, let's say, you're turning back, you're looking back at yourself 10 years ago when you were in the thick of it, when you were probably you didn't even know what you were going through then. What one piece of advice, knowing what you do now, what would you tell that person? Get out now.
You'll be okay, because my fear at that time was, how would I take care of my children, and all of that. And so I would just tell her, you'll be okay. You'll figure it out.
Okay, I see. Taking care of the younger version of you. Yeah. So now let's go back to the coaching process. I'll call it a coaching process. Forgive me if maybe I'm not using the right word. Some form of coaching or counseling. How long do you work with one client typically? Is there an average?
It depends. Typically, most people will come for that workshop and then go on their way.
A workshop of how long?
Intensive, 3 or 4 or 5 hours. Depends on the size of the group. It depends on the particular workshop. And then a percentage of those people will typically choose to work with me. And I encourage them to stick with it for about 6 months.
Okay.
But a year is even better.
Wait a minute now. 6 months. What does that mean? To come see you once a week for 6 months? Or do you give homework and then I see you once a month?
Yeah, that's the fun thing about being a coach and not a counselor per se, is that, yes, I give questions, but I also act as a teacher, right? I'm really a teacher, teaching you how to do this and make this change. And so I meet them 3 weeks a month and then give them home play, as I like to call it. Yeah.
Now, what does that look like?
So that might look like you're going to commit to some practices. Like meditation.
All right.
Like tapping or EFT.
But do they come to you already knowing what meditation is?
Some people are a blank slate. Some people have never meditated in their lives. They don't know how. They think, they have these preconceived notions of it and think they can't do it because they can't stop thinking.
Right.
Isn't the point at all.
You mentioned briefly EFT. Can you explain that's a tapping? Go ahead.
Yep. So that's tapping. And that's one of my favorite tools because it connects body and mind.
How do you think?
I think you're saying your truth. You're speaking your truth, and it's total truth telling. So it's not covering it up with positive affirmations that might not feel true. I want my clients to tell the absolute truth. So if they hate an experience, that's what they're saying. Or if they're super angry, that's what they're saying. But as they're saying these words, they're also tapping on those tapping points, those meridian points, and it's like acupuncture at your fingertips. And so it's also working with stored emotion in our bodies to release it with those words. And out comes old beliefs, old programming, old emotions that we've stored, and there's often a great release. And while I caution anyone who's had severe trauma in their lives not to practice without an actual licensed therapist, for the regular trauma, of regular growing up in this culture and life, most of us can safely commit to a practice of EFT to really help us uncover the hidden beliefs about money, about relationships, about life.
It's very funny. You mentioned money. There was a guest of mine on this podcast, a woman who was she was a financial consultant, but what she did was help people understand what money is and how to manage it, literally have it in their hands. And she said to me, it's a taboo talking about money. And I thought, oh my God, she's right. And this brings me to something else, because everything you've been saying so far is based on oral communication, it seems. Is that right? Or do they fill out some kind of things before starting?
They do. I do invite them. Oh, yes, before there's an intake form, so I can understand them a little bit better and what they want to get out of.
Okay.
Yeah. So now, if they're coming straight from a workshop, I might not know a thing about them.
Exactly.
But if they're coming to me as a one-on-one client, then yes. Then they give me more
now,
details.
there a time when you ever have them journal or write or do mind mapping? Because sometimes I find that tapping doesn't always work with everyone, and they need another type of tool, something different to get to their senses.
My toolbox is pretty full at this point in my life. And so
well, come on, you're hiding things. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, give her a round of applause so she'll just open up.
There are so many tools.
Of course.
And not every tool works for every person. Right. And so it is part of the process to kind of uncover for them which ones work for you. Mm-hmm. And so I might feel that this one will work for them, and I'll give them tapping for a few weeks. I tap 5 minutes a day for the next couple of weeks.
But how do they report to you when they come back? Do they journal and tell you about it, or they just come in?
I do ask for a reflection form. So each week they complete a reflection form. Like, here's what I've done. Here are any insights or ahas. And then we talk about it. Mm-hmm. And then, if they've given it the old college try and if they don't like that particular tool, then I'll say, okay, let's try something different. And journaling is for sure a wonderful tool. Yes. I even often will incorporate, for people who have a hard time saying what they're feeling, like, well, maybe journal then, and then read back your journal entry and tap while you read it, or say it out loud. That's fine too. Yeah. And there are so many, and it depends on their experience. If they're having a lot of stress in their life, and maybe they just want to learn how to breathe.
Mm-hmm. So I gather from what you're saying that maybe 98% of the people who come to you are women, or all are women?
I'd say about 80%.
Okay, that's my experience.
I'm always gearing my work toward women, but men keep showing up. And in fact, men are the ones who will hire me. Yeah. So I'm always surprised. Like, I thought this would be a room full of women, and there are, out of 20, there are 5 men. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
The minority, the way they should be.
Still the minority. Yeah. And still, and I think more and more men are really wanting to get more in touch with who they are and
their female side. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some more authentic, gentle aspects of themselves.
All right, now I'm going to give you a tough one.
Okay.
I want a failure. A client. You just didn't. All of that toolbox pen just came out. Nothing worked. What happened?
Yeah. Well,
and then I'm going to ask you the other word. The success. Go ahead.
Sure. And frankly, both of the examples that came to mind are men. Yeah. So failure. I won't call him a failure yet, but we could, on the surface of it, look at it like a failure. Mm-hmm. But I've planted seeds that I feel like will help carry him through. But ultimately, we fail when we stop trying. Right. And so he didn't stick with the process. He didn't commit to it. He no-showed several sessions. Rescheduled last minute, changed. And finally, I have to set boundaries and commitments to myself as well, and say, look, you're not doing the work. And so you've lost a couple of sessions because you haven't shown up. Right. And he chose not to resign because he just wasn't making the space in his life for it. He wasn't ready, right? I mean, it's a judge. I try to refrain from judgment, but ultimately he's not quite ready to make that commitment to himself. Mm-hmm. He's still living more in a victim mentality mode of like, no, everything's happening to me.
Well, that's okay for a while, just as long as he comes out of it.
You are where you're at, and you are where you're at, and you have to be the driver of this ride.
All right, so now we hit on this poor Mr. X who may come around, right? Now, what about the extreme opposite, a wonderful success that you didn't expect?
That I didn't expect. No, I would say I did expect success from this other client. A wonderful success that I didn't expect. I always expect the best from everybody. So,
of course. Yes, I know.
I do. I told you, relentless optimist. But I will say the other client that I thought of initially came to me, and he was also freshly divorced, actually felt like, he was equally responsible for the problems in the relationship.
Good for him.
Yeah, really, really good. And really wanted to look at how he was raised, where there wasn't a lot of expression of emotion and everything was withheld and there wasn't a lot of really healthy communication. And he has children, so he wanted to teach them something different and for them not to get into their 50s and realize that they're not happy with their life. And so I did work with him for almost a full year, and actually he had taken the passion test with me several years ago, and then a couple of years ago came to me for like a redo because life changes as time passes. And so we did another passion test, and then he committed to working with me, and I think he ended up working with me for about 10 months, and then his re-signed package came to a point and work got back on track, and he was like, all right, I think I'm good to go for now. I think I'm going to try this on my own for a while. But his communication with his kids changed. His self-esteem just went up so high.
Did you give him a diploma and send him off?
Absolutely. His self-esteem was just remarkably
That's great.
Higher, and his comfort within himself and with feeling his feelings and processing, and it was just really inspiring.
No, and it does give you a lot of satisfaction too. Because I always say it's not about the money. It's really not about the money, because if we wanted to be rich, we'd be doing something else, for sure.
Right. Yeah.
But I have a pretty good handle on what you do. Is there something that you haven't told us, but that you love to do, like a hobby, a passion that you don't talk about? Tell us.
Oh, I pretty much talk about everything, Claudia, but what most people wouldn't know necessarily from the work that I present online is that I'm also a singer, so I sing.
Wow!
Yeah.
Oh, come on, belt something out for us. Oh, come on, give us one line.
What a difference a day made, 24 little hours.
What? Ladies and gentlemen, Tamara Zoner. Wow. Did you ever sing for other people?
I basically grew up in choir. I loved choir.
How exciting.
I'm
a voice coach. That's cool.
Oh, are you really? Yeah. As I stepped back into my own life, I started doing karaoke for stress relief.
Is that part of your toolbox as well?
It totally is. Good. It absolutely is. And then before I went full time with my coaching and speaking, I was working in senior living, and I was the director of life enrichment. So I'd book the entertainment, and I would book all the fun stuff, and so I would sing for them during social hour.
Oh my God! I could see it.
Yeah, and also the Glee Club director was like, I came in and sat in one time and was singing, and he was like, we should duet, because he would come and perform. And so then I started performing with him at various senior communities. And now I actually go back to the senior community that I worked at for 4 years.
I have a vision of the senior community, the men saying, take it off, Tamara.
I did sing Love for Sale the last time I performed. They gotta live a little too.
Oh no, this is fantastic. This is fantastic. I love it. Oh, we should have led with this. Oh, that was great. That was great. Well, before we go, let's tell my audience where they could contact you. Do you have a website?
Yes.
Tell me.
Yes, I have a website. You can type in just my name, www.tamarazoner.com. I'm on Facebook. I do a lot on Instagram, just showing up with 30-second little bits of inspiration. But yeah, if you want to contact me, my website is best.
Okay, that's great. Yeah. And do you have an Instagram account?
Yes. So again, my name is pretty unique. There's, as far
as
I know, only one other Tamara Zoner in the whole world, and she's Brazilian or something like that. So it's not me. And it's either Tamara Zoner or one Tamara Zoner.
Okay. Right.
On Instagram, on Facebook.
Okay. All right. Good.
Occasionally LinkedIn and Twitter.
But, I wrote that down. And of course, I'll be writing this at the bottom of each of this episode. Thank you so much for coming and for allowing yourself to let go and give us that beautiful sound. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for asking. It's been a blast. Thank you, Claudia.
Bye-bye.